let's take a look at what we're going to do here, because we have to get rid of the toxic resentment. We have to deal with it. So let's walk through some steps. First of all, whatever this irritation is, this frustration, ask God to show you how to bring up the topic with your husband or whoever in a respectful, gentle, loving way. And now I think I'd like to add another word in there. I had lots of adjectives, but let's add one more. So beyond respectful and gentle and loving, let's add humble. Let's add humble to that mix. And let's add one more, because I just keep on thinking of more. Let's add quiet. Addressing this with your husband in a respectful, gentle, loving, humble, and quiet way. Because I'm just going to tell you right now, men will almost always shut down emotionally. They might be looking like they're looking at you and like they're engaged, but if you start getting kind of like that harsh, critical, loud thing going on, most men they're not listening to you anymore. So explain your concerns that way and explain how it's affecting you. And I know some of you think this is just the corniest thing ever, but do you want it to work with your husband or not? He will probably take what you're saying much better if you take a humble, lower physical position with him. How many of you have tried that? A couple of you? Has it worked?
Amazing.
Amazing. Okay. Do you know what I mean by this? Okay, let me show you, even though it's kind of weird. Well, I won't really get down on my knees here, but let's say your husband's sitting on the couch or sitting in his favorite chair, and you want to bring up this concern. You could go over and stand there where you're actually over him.
Talking down to him is what my husband does.
Yeah. Not good, not good. This is not a winning position for you to be in. Because see, you're like towering over him, and a man immediately is going to be really super defensive because you have him in this awkward position. What if you were to come to him while he's sitting on his couch or whatever, and you were just to kind of like sit down, like kneel down, not like in a weird kneeling way, but just like kneel down, maybe rest your elbow on his knee or whatever, but see how you're looking up now because of your position, you're looking up at him. Very humble posture. If you talk gently in that position with your husband and make a request, he will hear you, I'm guessing, about 90% better than the other way. So just consider that as just a tip. Okay, then ask him this question. Help me understand why, and then just shut up and listen. And listen to what he says. And don't fill up the pause with words, because women like pause. Oh, we got to fill it with words. Well, let me help you understand. I'll tell you why you're not doing it. It's clear to me. You don't even love me. I should have never married you. Okay. But just listen. Now, men gather their thoughts much more slowly than women do when emotional issues are brought up. Men take longer to process. So you might need to just pause and just kind of listen. And he might not even have an answer right away. And if he doesn't, maybe just say, well, can you just think about that, and maybe we could talk about it again tomorrow. So if your husband doesn't seem to have a good reason for his harmful or disrespectful behavior or whatever it is, then ask him to make a specific change. A specific change. But give him some time to process what you're asking. So here's an example of making a specific request. This one is about housework. Even though we're both working full-time, I've been doing all the housework and all the cooking, and I'm getting exhausted. I would really appreciate you helping with some of the house chores. Will you make a commitment to do the vacuuming and the cleaning of the showers every weekend? This would mean so much to me. Let's talk about it tomorrow after you've had a chance to think about it. Now, you say it in your own tone of voice and you know how you would say it, but see how quick that was? That was what, like 20 seconds, 15 seconds? It was really short, wasn't it? You stated like, here's the problem, I'm getting exhausted. Will you make a commitment to, and you listed the exact things, and you didn't leave it all open-ended. Would you clean more? What does that even mean? Okay, here's another example about a specific request. Let's say you have a husband who's been kind of verbally abusive, like lashing out in anger toward you. Okay, so you sit down, you've got the humble posture, it's a good time. By the way, timing is everything, right? You don't hit him the moment he comes in the door at the end of the day. You kind of find a time where he's eaten something, he's maybe a little rested. So you sit down and you say, honey, you've been lashing out in anger a lot at me lately, and it's crushing my heart. I'm concerned that our marriage is going to fall apart if we keep going on like this, and I love you too much to allow that to happen. Will you come see a marriage counselor with me for at least 4 or 5 sessions so we can both work on some of our issues? Let's talk about it tomorrow and figure out if this is something, after you've had a chance to think about it, let's talk about it tomorrow. How about another one? let's say your husband's been looking at pornography, which is a common thing, but it usually breaks the woman's heart. So again, humble position. I notice that you've been looking at pornography again, and it breaks my heart. I feel betrayed by you when you do this, like I'm not desirable to you. I need you to do whatever it takes to overcome this habit, so I'm asking you to make a commitment to put accountability software on your computer and your phone, and to discuss this issue with our pastor and have you link him up with an accountability partner, and to attend a men's group, a recovery group that deals with these issues. I know I'm asking a lot, but this is so important for our marriage. Will you pray about this? Will you think about this? And let's talk about it again tomorrow. Now, I'm just saying, again, when you say, would you think about this and let's talk about it again tomorrow, already he's like, because men just do not want to be pressed for an answer that second. I just know that if you give them that, like, let's not even keep talking about it right now. Just think about it, pray about it, whatever, and let's talk about it again tomorrow. He will think about it. He will think about it, but now he doesn't feel pressed against the wall. If your husband does not agree to change his ways, or doesn't follow through on the commitment to change, which is often the case, because often husband will say yes, but then they don't do what they said they were going to do. So if he doesn't follow through on a commitment to change, then seek advice from a godly friend or a godly mentor to make sure your request is appropriate and to gather wisdom on what to do next. So don't just give up, but go seek godly counsel. Number one, to make sure your request is reasonable and appropriate, because sometimes we do make kind of silly requests, or they're not we make a mountain out of a molehill. But then also to get advice on what should I do next, because I made the request and he's ignoring me. Okay, if after prayer and the advice of a godly mentor, you agree with this mentor that your husband needs to make a change, that this is pretty doggone important, then you may need to move to a Matthew 18 course of action. And Matthew 18 verses 15 through 17 is what Jesus says to do if someone is sinning against you. He just says it right out there, what you're supposed to do if someone's sinning against you. And basically, well, let me read the verse to you. It says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, just between the two of you. So, by the way, you would have already done this, right? You've already talked to your husband just between the two of you. Okay, continuing on with the verse. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So I'm taking a little time out to explain that. So this is you asking then to go see a counselor or a pastor. You're kind of widening this because he wasn't listening just to you. So now you're saying, okay, I think this is serious enough. We need to go see a pastor, a counselor, a mentor couple, whatever. If he still won't listen to you, it says, if he refuses then to listen to them, tell it to the church, and if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile or a tax collector. And as I was studying this verse many, many years ago when we first got started, it was like an aha moment for me when I realized that Jesus is basically giving an intervention recipe. He's saying, like, first you go to the person and you keep it just between the two of you, but if they won't listen, then you go to a pastor or a counselor or whatever, and you see if they can put some pressure on this person to do the right thing. At the end of the day, if they just won't listen, you have to take drastic measures. If this is an important issue, like he's verbally abusing you, he's cheating on you, he's driving drunk with your kids, you've got to take some serious action then. And so at the end of the day, you might have to treat him as a pagan or a tax collector. Now, back in the days when this was written, the Jewish people did not even associate with pagans or tax collectors. They shunned them. So in a sense, it seems like Jesus is saying, you might need to just draw a firm line here. You might even need to separate if it's that serious. And the idea is not to punish them. The idea is not to get a divorce. The idea is to put some pressure on them to say, this is not okay. I'm not going to put up with this. This is not okay. So that would be the extreme of where you'd need to go with the Matthew 18 principle. But that might be a possibility depending on how sinful the behavior is. Main thing, don't just ignore the problem or stuff your feelings. Don't let resentment start to make your heart cold toward your husband, because if you don't deal with this current ongoing stuff, your heart will grow colder and colder and colder and colder and colder. It might take 15 or 20 years for it to become an iceberg, but it will become an iceberg if you don't deal with this stuff. So I'm strongly urging you to do that.